Okay, next, Greg Shantz asks, "Hi, Matt. I have a question for Dave. What became of Harry Kremer's collections after his passing?" Boy, there's a question that there's an answer for it. There's probably multiple answers for it, none of which are available to me, and I'm pretty sure not available to any but a small handful of people. I would narrow it down in terms of, this is the closest I can come to answering your question, Greg. Too many people had access to 60K Street, Dekay Street, if you want to Google the house on Google Earth to see what Harry's place looked like. That was where Harry lived, as far as I know, all of his life in Kitchener from 1946 on, with his father and mother. He was the only child still at home. I think he had brothers, but they all got married and had kids. And then his father died, and it was just Harry and his mother living at 60K Street. And then his mother died, and it was just Harry living there. And Harry was a very soft touch as a relatively successful person. In terms of most of the people that he knew were either from high school or the years and years that he spent working at Smiles and Chuckles chocolate factory, candy factory in town. And he never lost touch with the people that he knew way back when. And as I say, he was a soft touch. It's like people came and went at 60K Street who needed a couch to crash on while they got themselves back together. Harry was pricing a collection in his living room when he died. So, there's ancillary questions like, what happened to that collection? How did somebody be able to prove I gave Harry my collection and he was going to give me a price, and as far as I know, he was still working on it. Do you still have the books? And it's like, well, who are you asking? It's like everybody was just people who worked at Now and Then Books, and there was a legion of them, and the people who were in and out at 60K Street, and I'll go out on a limb here, a completely disinterested family. Harry was just the weird member of his family who was obsessively interested in comic books and obsessively interested in comic art and obsessively interested in records, particularly soundtracks. And his family just wanted to wrap everything up. Harry's dead. Obviously, the only thing of value is the house itself. We'll sell the house and divide up whatever that amount is. But in terms of all this comic book stuff, we have zero interest in this. We have zero interest in what's going to happen to it. And obviously, again, as with the vultures surrounding the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Taylor Swift, there are vultures everywhere. So I don't think it ceased to exist. The artwork didn't cease to exist, but it went into the hands of people who divided it quickly into, Deep Six this, or I will sell it to you myself, at a discount, but then it's on your head that if you get caught with this, and Dave Sim artwork from all the way back to 1971, when I was first going to Now and Then Books, was obviously at or close to the top of the list. But also other artwork that, because the people that were looking at it were going, okay, I know of Rosetta, I know a Jeff Jones, I know a Barry Windsor Smith, I know a Bernie Wrightson, or at least I can sort of intuit that these are major pieces. There's a lot of other stuff in there, like I don't even know who this is, and it was maybe a $2,000, $3,000 piece of artwork in 2002 when Harry died, and is now probably a $10,000 or $20,000 piece of artwork. It won't get destroyed, but it will go through a number of strange hands before it finally ends up somewhere. I'll contrast that with the other effect. It's usually the family. It's the family either participates or just turns a blind eye to it because it's like, I got my own problems. It's like, yes, Harry was my nephew, or Harry was my grandson, or Harry was my cousin, or whatever. But I'm just, this isn't something that I want to invest my life in. Contrast that with Craig Miller's father. When Craig Miller died, the guy who did Following Cerebus, and his father did dive in. It's, okay, here's this house full, chock full of all of these collectibles. I had no interest in this. Craig and I didn't talk about it, and I still have no interest in it. But I do have interest in my granddaughter, Jennifer, who has been taken back to Ohio by the estranged wife. And I have no use for the mother. I have no use for Craig, for the most part. He's just, Craig was Craig in the same way that Harry was Harry. But Jennifer, I will move heaven and earth, because the granddaughter is, butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. She's a perfect being. I have to do everything that I can possibly do to benefit Jennifer, and ended up having spent, I think, 5 years, pretty much 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, cataloging, trying to find out what the stuff that Craig had left was worth, and turned it into whatever amount of money he turned it into. I think $250,000, something like that, and made sure that it is in escrow, that it will become Jennifer's when the time comes, when she is of age. But it's not going to the mother. It's going to Jennifer, which is probably not the nicest thing in the world that you can do to a kid, but people don't know that. It's a grandfather looking at his granddaughter, and it's like, make sure that she's buried in money, where all Craig wanted was, I want Jennifer's education paid for. And it's like, higher education. I want her to go to university and not have to worry about money. Well, you can go to a lot of universities for the rest of your life on $250,000. The odds are you're going to spend that $250,000 on things that are not good for you, and just end up tempting yourself in very, very bad directions. But try explaining that to a grandfather. I helped where I could. So basically, all of this stuff just turns up now, Greg, a bit at a time. Stuff that I don't even remember that I did. Harry had bound volumes of his Marvel comics, which he decided to do, like Fantastic Four, number 1 to 100, and all in bound volumes. Anytime I see bound volumes in Heritage Auctions catalogs, I look at it and it's like, it's all pretty, everybody did pretty standardized bound volumes back in the day. But I go, were those Harry's? Were those Harry's Fantastic Four number 1? And when did they leave 6 Decay Street, and who did they leave with? And how many trips around the circuit did they make before they ended up at Heritage Auctions? Or it's probably the same case with anything that I'm looking at in Heritage Auctions, unless it came from the actual collector who said, okay, I'm all done with these. I really more need the money than I need the complete set of FF and Tales of Suspense and Spider-Man and whatever else that Harry had, complete collections of all the Marvel comics. A lot of those bound collections went the same way. It's here's the completely disinterested family. Where's the comic book store he used to go to? Can you give me any money for these? And they open them up, and it's a complete set of Fantastic Four, and it's like, well, they're thinking, I can't give you what they're worth, and I can't give you probably a tenth of what they're worth, but I can give you enough money that'll make you happy, and then I can turn around, and eventually they'll end up at Heritage Auctions.
Yeah, that's the collector's curse of, my mountain of Hopalong Cassidy memorabilia is worth a fortune to me, and when I'm gone, it's, well, what do you do with all this Hopalong Cassidy merchandise?
Which is, yeah, go ahead.
Well, in theory, I don't actually own Hopalong Cassidy, but that's, I'm just thinking, the guy that owned the comic book store I used to go to when I first got into service, when he had his heart attack and died, because that's a stereotypical thing for comic book guys is, they don't take care of themselves, they get overweight, they have a heart attack. And it was, they got to clean out his apartment, and then he was in the role-playing games. The store was mostly a role-playing store, but he also liked comics, so he was doing comics too. And I had lent him some stuff and never got it back, and I'm like, all right, whatever, I don't need it back this minute type thing. Well, he died, and when they were cleaning the apartment, I'm like, hey, did this stuff show up? And they're like, no, not that we saw. And I'm going, I wonder where Jim left it. Because,
right.
The box of stuff has to be somewhere. But, and it was the same thing with the store of, okay, we want to keep the store open in his memory. Well, that's all well and good on paper, but 3-4 years later when, hey, the store's not making money, and the inheritance is getting down to the last couple of nickels, okay, what do we do now?
Right.
And that's when they fired the manager who had been there for years and years and years, and it got to the point where, because comic book store owners aren't necessarily the best businessmen, so the guy hadn't been paying the store's taxes, and he also hadn't been paying his personal taxes, and the IRS came and said, you're going to give us this money, or we're putting you into collection type thing. And his brother, who was managing the estate, went to the store account and emptied it to pay the back taxes, which he had the legal right to do it, but he didn't tell the manager, so the manager all of a sudden was bouncing checks to Diamond because he wrote a check that had no money behind it.
Right.
It goes back to
there's a Russian novel to be written behind every one of those instances, and they are legion.
It goes back to a common theme of Please Hold for Dave Sim of, hey, if you're a collector, write down your wishes, make a plan, have a long box of the high-end books that this stuff will bring money when you're gone. And leave a copy of that list with people you trust. Right.
And that gets into a funny area too. Like a lot of people trust people that they shouldn't trust, and all of a sudden, there you are. I picture in the next world going, "Oh my God, this is the person that I trusted, and this is what ended up happening." I don't think that's an unusual circumstance. Again, particularly in the family sense, because comic fandom isn't a transmissible blood relation thing. Very, very rarely, anyway. It's you better trust somebody who's another comic book person, like Eddie Kana, rather than going, well, okay, what relative do I trust?